나무 부배 나무 다야 나무 다라마 나상가야 나베 나상가 I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So we left off at the beginning of verse 4. That's on page 51. But before we collectively read and then discuss verse 4, we would like to refresh our minds on the previous verses. If you would kindly turn to page 46, you'll see there in verse 1, and as we share with you this recap, if you'd like to pay attention to the root verses there that remind you of the points that were shared in the commentary. So in verse 1, the emphasis was seeking enlightenment for the sake of others and holding them dear. And if we go through quickly the root verse, you'll see there that as shared or as presented, that with the thought of attaining enlightenment for the welfare of all beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. When we think about others, and particularly in the context of attaining enlightenment, the kindness of others and the opportunity that are provided through others are just as great and impactful and beneficial as the kindness of the Buddhas themselves. And it is because of others, for others, and through others that we attain this great state of enlightenment. When Geshe and I were preparing for today's session, not that it directly aligns with the concepts here, but suddenly I thought of, I remember this visit to DC, and we were visiting all the monuments, and I forgot which one, but there was a quote, I believe, gosh, my history is terrible, but it's a phrase that we use a lot, sometimes in politics, and also just here, in our in the principles that we share as a society, and in our culture, and it goes back to the lines of, we the people, for the people, by the people. And so it kind of reminded me, oh, well, for sentient beings, by sentient beings, and through sentient beings or others, that this enlightenment is possible. And is what we aspire to. It's the enlightenment is a tool for which we are able to serve sentient beings in the greatest capacity. So remembering this, we're able to create that connection in seeing others as precious and dear, just as presented here in the root verses. If you go to page 48, verse 2, the emphasis in verse 2 is seeing others as supreme. And here, the focus is to shift the attention and the emphasis from oneself to others, and to direct that focus and that attention to their qualities of others, instead of our usual habit and pattern of just thinking about ourselves. And here, a lot of what was shared in, or what is presented here in the meaning of verse 2 and in the commentary as well, is this as a means or a practice of, or a remedy, an antidote to one's arrogance. So if you look there in the root verse, whenever I am with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all. So the lowest of all, meaning you're releasing or relinquishing this arrogance that we hold inside, and this grasping at our arrogance and at our qualities, and essentially at ourselves, and then shifting that energy and focus towards the qualities of others, and seeing their value. And what we took a bit of time to go through and to differentiate a couple of weeks ago through the commentary was the correct interpretation of the terminology and the wording in the root verses and the commentary as well. If you look at the second line there, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all. Again, this is an antidote and a remedy to arrogance. This is not a belittling of oneself, and this isn't a forfeiting or a refuting of self-belief, self-trust, or self-confidence, or self-esteem. So often our interpretations, our own kind of perceptions and conceptual labels that we have with a lot of the terminology can kind of lead us towards certain interpretations and perceptions of what's being shared. But what we hope served, what we shared with you in regards to verse 2, we hope was a platform for you to analyze And as you go through not only this text, but other texts, and as you expand your learning and practice, to take a moment to really examine whether you're interpreting the verses and what's being shared correctly. And so please understand that here, the lowest of all, by seeing oneself as the lowest of all, one is doing one's best to decrease an attachment to the ego, to decrease the intensity of arrogance, and to call out and to catch that ego red-handed, and to kind of to keep that at bay, and to slowly tame the ego in the context of arrogance. And then again, as mentioned a bit earlier, shift this attention and focus towards the quality of others, and then in doing so, fully embrace and see the value in others around us. If we turn to page 50, in verse 3, what's being, or the emphasis in verse 3 is preventing delusions. And so within the commentary on this verse, there was this attention to awareness and mindfulness in all actions that we participate in or engage in throughout each and every day. These actions fall into 4 categories, or they were broken up into 4 categories here. And in most of the common, these 4 common categories are mentioned in many different texts and explanations, but they include standing, traveling, sitting, and sleeping or moving. So we always are, if you think about it, throughout the day, one is probably engaging in at least one of those, or extensions of either of those. And so basically whatever action one is engaging in, to guard one's mind, to be on alert, so that one can refrain from as mentioned here, and the reverse, disturbing attitudes or afflictive emotions, as they're also known as, disturbing thoughts, so that we can refrain from those, and we can discern those and identify those as if and when they arise. And again, these disturbing attitude or these disturbing thoughts, the result is an endangering, as presented here, endangering of myself and others, because it is through these disturbing emotions that we our psychological world, our emotional world are impacted, and then from those we react, and mostly in negative ways. If they came from disturbing attitudes, the results of the cause was disturbing attitudes or disturbed emotions or afflictive emotions, unwanted negative emotions, then the results will most likely be negative as well. So that's what we're trying to confront and avert, as shared here in verse 3. And then today, we're on to verse 4. That's on page 51. So please follow along with us while we read verse 4, both the root verse and then the commentary on page 52. Verse 4, cherishing difficult people. Whenever I meet a person of bad nature who is overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering, I will hold such a rare one dear, as if I had found a precious treasure. And the commentary reads, this verse could also refer to people afflicted with a contagious disease or a fatal illness. Usually, when we encounter people of bad nature, we try to ignore them instead of cherishing them. And we may advise others to stay away from such persons. We especially try to avoid people who are insane or who have a contagious disease. We keep our distance from them. Even if somebody has a bad body odor, we try to avoid them. We can ask ourselves, why do we do that? Why do we want to avoid such types of people? By doing this, we find that we are influenced by self-cherishing thoughts. We ignore or neglect those people because we hold ourselves too precious to mingle with them. And we fear that our precious self may also get contaminated. Geshe Langri Tangpa advises us to reverse such action and says that whenever we meet people who are ill-tempered, bad-mannered, or who have a contagious disease, we should treat them as if we are discovering a great treasure. When we see such people, let us show great joy at finding them and treat them like a treasure, especially if we are practicing Dongmen. If we truly want to tackle our own self-grasping, these are the tools with which to do it. We need to treasure these tools. When we do Donglen meditation, especially when we do the meditation on equalizing and exchanging ourselves with others, this advice will be invaluable. We need to incorporate these meditations into this practice. So before we pass the mic and engage in collective or interact collectively, we'd like to take a few moments to share our own thoughts on verse 4 and the commentary. Gaden machi soalwa namore.
Tera. Rajing in this Indiana. The daughter of the Tonse. Rajing Taton Triposhi, never going to change in shoes, right? The Zodo, the song, Rashing Yaba, that me Jovan Yamala name, do Rashing Yaba. That mean Barado, Chile Petson, Shashana Siorata. Then Shashawa in a tati me, Jovan Yamada to a Nanazui. Then the trade is running also. Masugi Samo Dana, Kato, Corona Yama to be, and Corona Pa, challenge reaching. Ningazogi concern to Masala, Logile Jera, or the Toshi, the Junen, the Tango Mara, the Dandina Lalas, my to Carson, Stetson, Masu Samugita, Talanda, or I answer. Nature Wagon Mado, Tanyando Kesi, two Chashava, and so Kangan don't nature Tancher, all this one.
So the common theme in this verse refers to a different perspective or a different view um, in regards to uh, as shared here, the exact words, persons of bad nature, and then difficult individuals and difficult circumstances in general. Typically, we label these individuals and these circumstances as negative and as bad because of the harm that or the discomfort that we feel they bring to us. Um, but what can be focused on, and what is focused on here in verse 4, and what can be focused on in terms of practice, is a means of dealing with and working through difficulty and suffering.
觉得电影的，当初的刚也动来钱堂的来，我说当去开两年所以动来钱堂钱堂，当我说去开两百亿能查，没两百亿能查，我说的没多，你说起一百亿呢，刚也跟着卡图来呀，刚也动来钱堂么查，都是上路当当么查，你了都是，上当来我都是。
So when it comes to dealing with and working through difficulty, and pain and suffering, there are two ways that we can look at this in general. One is kind of a more general secular approach, and then there is the approach through Buddhist practice.
对，其实我是去开嘛，来嘛来，卡的钱嘛，我是刚也动来钱堂的了，别且是我做没的了呀，我做的人送着去我那当做了，叔叔给叔叔了，这玩意儿给年钱，但你叔叔了这嘛，应该年嘛，应该当用起钱，那你叔叔了的这钱年了，卡的叔叔那把钱年了，但是没人嘛了，他送着去都用了。但的确对我做刚也忙不起，他叔叔的做那把钱也是那么多的。叔叔去桥住下来，把这些年，我等这着去这个考头的了，当然说，感觉多年前也对，当然得能做的生活了，那种对钱的产业，当然说等这去特别考头的了，我说的，你几个我说那把着去把下来呢，那把下来呢，这个都打可以的去开自助嘛玩意呢，打可以呢，我说等那把着去下来呢。但是前面考到的人我做给继续的的生活当中，也说说心的冒出来呢，还是当然的，该想不想要的是。
And so often these moments of difficulty and pain that we experience involve others. And within this realm of others, there are our close ones, our enemies, and then strangers. And so out of these three categories, these conditions arise that in many scenarios bring about a discomfort or a difficulty or a challenge. And the focus here in this verse is dealing with the difficulties and the challenges that arise from our so-called enemies or those that are negative towards us.
这个他的多年前面考到了，我说那上我说上路当初去了，别且是没的，那我去切个那我所以第一头了呀，那你我让说控制着我去切个那，那我说马几个切给做着的，我让说控制切的，他控制切的了呀，我说个上路的开始说可能那把这切个那的了呀，我说给他用了了，可能那些故事呀的那些，所以没有认识，现在他第一个不的。노톱체야 줘라 어디 녹초체에 개념 참여하스 다 권에 나서는 거다 들어다 어디로 오시라 네 대체는 수술을 내버려봐 네 냐마체 송사매체 다다체기도 산 몽바야 체니가 도사매 치체 안 라기니에야 나만은 바체 다다체기도 몽반 체그레 사매한 남도체 ane susuki magasa dratile ko ngema yawo chigido nisana ko yawo chigido mamangba ne kono tele yawo chigire samchene tanga zoke namdo tente mandawa gobi ane ngana zo ti kondo de ya lang chen tenga zo machi ba to so biores
근데 나선 곳에 다자 가는 게 스페이터.
거는 나선
나게 ጸ봤음지.
가시잖아.
나산내시.
나산내지. 마오나라나.
마오나라나 셔는 되게.
나스.
가오나라나 셔셔들. 그런 질문들. 나선.
나다.
어라.
그런 나선 줄래. 시래.
Okay. So when it comes to the reactions, our mental internal reactions, and these also result in our physical reactions to these so-called enemies, or those who are negative or bad or treat us badly, negative towards us or treat us badly, is typically an anger. And this anger then spawns, then throws us into this set of what are called hostile thoughts. I was looking for the right translation. Hostile attitudes, hostile thoughts. And so there is this set of hostile thoughts, a set of 9 hostile thoughts. And these 9 hostile thoughts are broken up into 3 sets of 3. And the first one is associated with oneself. And the thought is that, well, so this individual was negative or cruel to me or caused me pain. Or they caused me pain in the past, they're causing pain to me now, and they'll cause suffering to me in the future. So it's broken up into basically 3 times. So those are the ones associated with oneself. And the second set of 3 are that these bad-natured individuals caused harm to my close ones. So they caused harm to my close ones in the past. They're causing harm to my close ones presently. And they will also follow suit and inflict that same harm on my close ones in the future. So that's the second set of 3. The last set of 3 within these 9 hostile thoughts, or these 9 harmful thoughts, is that these negative individuals or these enemies of mine helped and benefited those who I don't care for, others that were bad to me. So they helped them in the past, they're helping them now, and will help them in the future, or will continue to do so in the future. So it's this automatic assumption, and this kind of mental reaction that takes place when anger starts to take root towards our enemies or the individuals that treat us negatively.
Yes. Teacher this and dance 강연 대 트립 카도들 디싱 거디 용고문도 세 디 가야들 다시 당고 디 가야 다시 당야 다다는 가서 손대 안 하시네 안는데 내가 저라 아서들 돈에 쳐야 될 와다 저러데 제가 덴디 강연 용배 카도들 가서기 덴디 나신 고디야 맞제버셰 대체 맞죠지 디 찹들이야 가르쳐 주고 그랬을 때는 다 덴디 강연 용배 카도들 알아 디 마소게 디 딘데 강에 디 토는 소래야 소소를 생내 장다르 쳐야요 소소 젠 던데 또 쳐봐 인상 소소를 생디 주주자야 스나모도 소소를 생디 데지 텔파 아니 콘도산의 소소마지바 차마주어지 소소기 디파 고야기 다시 지어와 어디 타나네 장더치야기 네 고거로 지레샤스 당아서 로종체라는 것들과 소소로지래야기 고거지레도와 삼친 드간스친 상계도나 안 소소마지바 차야디 참라 소소지고 차오야 지금 말했어.
So the results of this anger and then being embroiled in these nine hostile thoughts, or the set of nine hostile thoughts, ultimately is our suffering and unhappiness and instability. So when these negative emotions arise, what we should practice and what we should try to do is abandon them and apply antidotes to these afflictive emotions and disturbing emotions as best as we can. And as emphasized here in verse 4, what we can do, or what is recommended that we do, is, and this is a theme, this is the emphasis of practice throughout all of mind training, or much of mind training. And it is to reverse. And this was, if you look on page 52 there, in the middle of the page, where it mentions Geshe Tangpa advises us to reverse such action. This very practice of reversing is a strong focus and emphasis when it comes to the mind training teachings. So when it comes to, if we go back to the conversation of abandoning or dealing with and applying antidotes to anger, and then these set of nine hostile thoughts, what we can try to do or practice is reverse these thoughts. And rather than seeing them, or seeing the individuals that were conditions in these negative emotions arising, instead of seeing them as harmful, as people that, or individuals that we should that we should avoid, seeing them as people that are negative, we can see, we can try to shift that perspective, and instead of labeling these experiences as negative, what we can try to do is see them as opportunities to practice and train to see things differently. And when we seize the opportunity to reverse, as shared here, reverse the thought, the immediate reaction from fear and anger to a gratefulness and a joy in the opportunity to practice, then that brings about the result that we all want, which is peace and happiness.
된대기 먼저 강에 춘춘 춘사든 저한테서는 가서 들려야 디 소소기 로디 장다르 치야기 고거질 지체는 아니 저바 공야기 장다르디 체와 있나 아니 제스 참 쇼와다기다 내가 춘윤들려야 아니 저바 공야기 되게 탈란 제체는 bomba 있나 지마처럼 내가 참 쇼들이 온데서네 안처럼게 디 저바 공투르스 대공토바이나 아니가 저 저버서야 돼 참 공토와 디체지 미디 디제되는 게 참고요는.
So if we can see these adverse circumstances and conditions and situations as an opportunity to practice and train in viewing things, in reversing the thought process, in viewing things as rather than harmful and hurtful, seeing them as opportunities to be learned from, and opportunities to practice patience in. What we experience as a result is happiness, and as shared by the great Shantideva, is that if one is able to, through the development of patience and practice of patience, one is able to bear and work through small troubles or lesser troubles and lesser sufferings, what that becomes is a practice and a platform to work through and deal with greater suffering when they befall us. And so seeing any circumstances that come to us, and in here, within the context of dealing with difficult individuals that are being negative or treating us badly, and we can use these as stepping stones to solidify our ability to be patient, our ability to be calm, and practice these as a way of improving our reactions to different situations. And then as we practice seeing things as an opportunity and deriving the benefit, irrespective of if it presents itself as harmful or negative, then that slowly solidifies itself. And then from there, we can increase that practice so that when the going gets even tougher, we're able to withstand the pain and suffering in those moments as well. So in the moments where we come up against adversity, challenge, pain and suffering, what we tend to do is react immediately, rather than taking a moment to reflect on the potential we have in those moments. We actually have a lot more power and control than we think, a lot more potential than we think. And so instead of just doing the easy thing, let's just say that, instead of just going along with the emotion, what we can do is pause and then transform that experience into something beneficial through not reacting negatively to something bad that is befalling us or an individual that's treating us badly, but seeing that again as an opportunity to derive benefit from and to learn from.
아니 바시 사고도 다지고 시기나 아니 자신 좀 쉬어다 준유 첨보다 아니 라는 첨보다 됐으나는 시기나 배야 보여스 그래서 배 나랑 뭐 쉬어도 됐으면 저거 본다나 강에 돈에 제당 줘라 어디서 배 마음 쓰냐스.
So in the great Shantideva's work, her fundamental work of titles are called A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and then in Lamrim texts and commentaries, these techniques and practices are explained in great detail in terms of practicing patience and expanding and improving our ability to deal with and work through pain and suffering. And the emphasis on transforming suffering into the path or into practice is one that's pervasive in these great teachings.
Gaden cha ane nga zo ki chue yagi chi zoba gong yagi koka raba ina zoba gong yagi koka rabu yores zoba gong yagi koka raba ina ane nga zo sonam sa yagi ti na chot choba di ane zoba gong yagi cha di yores ti che du tsane di chue keleng yen chi inba ina ne rangla chi tora tang ya tante raba li chang ane rangla dachi ni chi raba ina ane tele ya chi susul koka cha tang ane gao gong wu yagi tele know, the song that is trading also Chilam Yan and Garsola. They didn't most a lot of not where to does. And you had to say told Leon the Nalatin Chetori and so till Tate says you so get the Luin and Sugi Bobby into the sea. Lojang Sheba in the Kaligali condition near those to
So if we're able to pause and maintain a composure and maintain a rationale in these moments where we're experiencing a difficulty or when we're engaging or dealing with difficult individuals, you can see how this process would lead to maintaining stability and generating peace and calm in one's own mind. And this is kind of, this can be seen from the general point of view, both the general and both from the point of view of Buddhist practice. And what's explained in Buddhist practice and in the Dharma is that rather than seeing these situations as ones to be, these negative or these difficult situations as ones to be afraid of or as things to be angry at, we should embrace them because it's through these more difficult and challenging conditions that we're able to practice and create a transformational change within our own minds. And so, if we look back at the three types of beings, or when we use the word others, we talked about close ones, enemies, and strangers. In the teachings, it mentions it's better to be or to encounter enemies than it is to encounter close ones. Actually, on the contrary, I think ordinarily or conventionally, we all would rather be with our close ones and people that treat us nicely rather than ones that treat us negatively. But from a Dharma practice point of view, the more we encounter and the closer we are to enemies and individuals that treat us negatively, the more that opportunity to practice and transform ourselves is available. So better than close ones are enemies, and better than praise is criticism. Again, when we're praised, we're not coming up against anything. There's no friction. Everything feels very soft and fluffy, and then in worst case scenarios, we start falling into this habituation to our arrogance again. But when we receive criticism, this presents the opportunity to practice, to pause, to analyze, and to apply antidotes. And if we dig a bit deeper, if we give ourselves the opportunity and time to see where this all stems from, in terms of a negative reaction or a negative feeling that comes from encountering difficult individuals or situations, is his grasping at the self, or this what is known as self-grasping or self-cherishing, and self-cherishing. And so that's the real enemy. That's what we're trying to eradicate, uproot and eradicate. And the best opportunities are found when friction and conflict is there. And so purely from a practitioner point of view, from a Buddhist practitioner point of view, it's better to encounter these conditions because of the opportunity they provide us.
Nice. 신주 야보 체체네 아니가 소 가르소다 강연들이 참아 아니가 소리 뜻이 뭐그 강연 가르쳐 봐 있네. 그래서 참아서 남도기 제만 제어대 강연들이 참아 그래서 그 상도기 루출했어요. 라다 상루츠 루출했어요. 도바이나 아니 가서 직 나줄래 이게 구요는 연구는 가르치려고 했는데 상만한 얘도 차로야 얘가 소주도야 아니 뭐에는 저기 자와 가르치 도와 있는데 상만 강에 뜻이야 오늘 강에 공원을 마셔 뜻 상만 동네 전에 소소기지 어 가르스보다 제가 남도 주었으면 너가 또 디톤수 디투버이나 아니 가서 반드시 있으면 너다 아니 가서 지담 쉐바인 쓸들을 지르와 네 주조 쉐위는 저럽 마물이야 손놈사야다 주조 쉐게는 손놈사야다 이 저럽 마물이야 되지 토야 되네 송고요레스
Um, so this practice, or the opportunities that are presented to us and the ability to use them to our advantage is something that is to be developed slowly. As beginners, we don't have the capacity to instantly react positively to negative circumstances or challenges, but slowly with practice and with time, we can develop that. We have the ability to develop that. And again, going back to the term reverse such action, that kind of transformation from a negative experience and transforming that into a positive one, or deriving something positive from it, irrespective or despite it being a negative experience, or dealing with a negative individual, is what we're trying to strive for, and something to keep in mind as a different perspective. And again, what's at stake is our own peace and happiness. And so if we take that into consideration, that serves as a huge incentive as to, or a purpose as to why we should practice this kind of reverse thinking, or this transformation of difficulty into benefit, of negative into positive. And this opportunity always presents itself. If we, again, from a general kind of secular point of view, the benefits of being able to do so would be felt immediately. We wouldn't react out of anger. Anger wouldn't arise, and it wouldn't propel being caught up in these negative states. And because of that, we wouldn't our actions wouldn't be influenced in a negative way. We would be able to maintain our composure, stay calm, and in doing so, we protect our own stability in our minds. From a Buddhist practitioner point of view as well, on top of those immediate benefits, the benefits that are had include positive imprints and karma, not only in this life but in future lives, an accumulation of merit or positive karma and imprints through these actions and through these practices that not only bring about positive experiences in this life, but in many lifetimes after as well. So this practice and emphasis is what's being shared here in this verse.
나서 대체돼 같이 애들아 나다나 디치드 나올 때도 그냥 다들 저거시라 니브라가 있잖아요. 그래서 당한서 뒤냐네야 뭐지 뒤톨이야 냐네야 뭐지 제소이나 아니 나서 강연 쳐봐다 왠지 메인에 다 저방에 바터 근데 쳐봐이나 아니 나서 소소 마지막 마차고 산도 마세베 안고 통도잖아요. 지가와 나는 콘솔을 봐 젠진 제셔라 다 콜을 봐 저와 제셔라 저와 제 단위지 제야도 저와 제야체 나 니지도 저와 제도 나 소스이네 지고 샤그라 노스 제대 산다서 노스 제야데 나는 저도 있는 거였어.
So if we take everything that we've been discussing for the past half an hour or so, and bring it back to the root verse, you can see here that through this type of practice, through this type of analysis, that we're able to, that we would be able to embrace and cherish and value these bad-natured, so-called bad-natured individuals or negative individuals that are mistreating us or treating us in a bad way. So it's these practices and this ability and this this awareness is what's being shared in this verse. All right. 일단 지금 change하시는 분수 주긴 봐. 예, 때문에 이때 전주되는 사무치되어라. 시그니스 아니 파주 전주셔로. 어디 야부 또 그거 되다 자네, 봐. And so before we pass the mic to you for any questions or insights or comments you would like to share, as a means of summarizing what we or extending this the explanation that we just shared with you are a few notes that I wrote down in preparation for today that Geshe and I worked on, and basically in the form of certain bullet points. But so the first one here, transforming suffering into the path, and this is the common theme here within the teachings, and then more greatly emphasized in this verse as well. Alter one's thoughts, look at things differently from how people/things seem harmful. So yes, and then yeah, exactly what we shared with you. And then this kind of took us into the conversation of the 9 or the set of 9 hostile thoughts. Another branch or extension to this conversation here is that friction or conflict brings resilience. Even though a lot of the time our initial reaction is, oh no, like this is, unpleasant. This is not nice. Get me away from here as far as possible. This aversion to conflict and friction. But if we take a moment to think about it, there are things to be had. There are things that we learn, and it's a way of growing. These experiences, these negative and difficult experiences in individuals that we deal with help us grow and help us learn. So friction brings resilience, helps growth through exposure to different conditions and environments. And so that's something to be had. That's one of the benefits that are to be derived from when we experience difficulty and interact with negative individuals. Another one here, in terms of the thought process to practice when going through difficulty and negative and interacting with negative individuals, is implementing a more broad and expansive perspective, opening our minds, opening our hearts, and not just immediately reacting to what we see in front of us. That's something that we all struggle with as human beings. We're very short-sighted. We just see what's in front of us. We don't think 10 steps down the road. We just react immediately to what was presented to us, or our interpretation or our perception of what took place in front of us, or who it is in front of us. What we should do, or what would be beneficial to do, is incorporate a long-term thinking, a broader, more expansive type of thinking, one that doesn't just grasp onto or label the immediate conditions that are right in front of us, but looking beyond that. And when we do that, we open the door to opportunity. and change and growth in ourselves, rather than just you're reacting to and wanting something immediately. This yearning for instant gratification is something that we struggle with. And so what we can try to do, again, is be aware and be mindful in these moments. And instead of just reacting immediately to what we see, we can kind of think long-term, think about more than what is being presented at face value. And from that, benefits can be experienced. Every and any experience can be learned from, and benefit can be derived from despite or irrespective of its a positive or a negative experience. And that's something to keep in mind as well. And so if there's something if there's something to learn or benefit from, it doesn't make that negative experience, quote unquote negative experience, so negative anymore, does it? At least there was something to be had from it. And this kind of positive thinking, this optimism, is something that we all have the seeds for, and it's just about conjuring that up and nurturing it and being able to slowly gain a command of it. That's important, and that can be improved through practice. Instead of looking at others' harm as something that hurts us, see them as conditions to personal growth. So again, the emphasis on growth and learning. Yeah, from a Dharma point of view, the adverse individual's conditions are essential to practice. You're actually yearning for these opportunities because those are the conditions you need to practice. Again, if one's too comfortable, there's no opportunity to practice. So that conflict and friction is necessary, but slowly, nothing overwhelming, especially as beginners. We have to take it slowly, but they are needed. Yes, and order. And there's just one last one. Here was one's peace and happiness is not dependent on others' opinions. And a lot of these are both emphasized here in the teachings, but also very approachable from the secular point of view. And it's the truth in them that is highlighted on a practical level. So it's not, the teachings aren't something that are just in theory and somewhere in the sky. These are all practical truths and fundamentals that we deal with, and that's what makes these teachings unique. But yes, so Geshe was reminding me that we're getting short on time, so we're going to refer to both questions and comments here online and then here in person. If you have any here in person, I'm going to go ahead and pass this mic around if there's anything you would like to share. As of this moment, there are a few online, so let me read a couple of them first, and then we'll take turns with attendees here in person. So the first question is, how does one apply Shantideva's teaching to the following situation, which occurs in reality? And so the following situation reads, Frog and Scorpion. This is a Russian 20th century fable. Okay, once upon a time, there was a frog. One day, a frog was sitting by a riverbank when along came a scorpion. Hello, brother frog, said Scorpion. I wonder if you might be so kind as to give me a ride across the river on your back. Frog knew that Scorpion could not swim. Excuse me, sorry. A frog knew that Scorpion could not swim. I don't think that's a good idea, said Frog. You have a deadly sting. You might kill me. But why would I do that? Replied Scorpion. If I stung you, we would both die. Thought Frog. That makes sense. All right, Scorpion, jump onto my back and I will give you a ride across the river, he said. So Scorpion jumped onto Frog's back and Frog began to swim across the river. But halfway across, Scorpion took his deadly sting and stuck it into Frog's back. And as poison filled Frog's body, his arms began to stiffen, and they both began to sink. Why? Gasped Frog in despair. Sorry, Frog, said Scorpion. It's my nature. So, Scorpion's nature is to also, so at any cost, to cause harm. It seems like it, even at its own life. And Frog and Scorpion died. Tadi pagi trung shigore. Tadi tindin nidan chi kan la ya ani kezi shibale sungdi kanjus nyamne shigore shigore.
되게 장난 가르라 샵.
전다데 가르스나?
아.
아니 가지 되나 님보 dirda. Mi rangi hangi khora mi duja imai nyamba imai na. Rola. Mi nyamba pe rangi bi shiga pe nyamba khora. Pe what joe mi je pe shigo khora kidino khora nyamba ina. Yo ta mi ngi dinji liya. 아니 파 먼저 파 같이 뭐 가서 직선을 야가르스타니 그거 주네요. 내가 직 세바 가르스 고모이네. 아니 그 시고 거랑 뭐 인지 선발라. 아니 라시 니가를 주네베 차와. 나백 선물만 돼. 요마르스. 아니 딘데 지밍 뭐 질랭한서 파 직자 아 그냥 말스 라브지 서버를 고모같이 수술을 뇌야다. 어야. 라시 코로나 뇌 라니를 뇌 니가 어딘데 진짜 그게 제딩이시나? 아니 간시오르스.
알아 디 저보 공한테 말해. 근데 저보 공스인데 제가 먼저 따다라 하니 하도 먼저 그러와. 먼저 저보 공한테 전에 거기 디 강행이라고 지 서버는 디 강행들랑 가서 수수심라 강행 때문에 저거체. 디 단도 디 랑신이가 넣어야기 내가 책에는 들로 동네 해야 돼 수수 남쪽 배제다는 최고거라. 디 그런게 아니 가르서 거기서 도부지 따정 걸데 배제션의 티지 슈가 레버 차샤반 안에 디 조바인라는 곳에 말마 디 트리드가 다시 땅 거라 내가 저 갈라는데 거기 티슈와 들 때는 수수 콘르들 나제 수수 마지버도 마셔라 심디 마실레체 그런 트리드 슈가 레버는 트리드 소소스는 마시거든 수수 까고 그래 다시로 그래서 가서 저버고는 저는 저버서야 돼 안에 나홍길에 저버고야 돼 말이야 남주던 대비 저버고 그래서 남주던 대비 저버고야 돼 가르스 되잖아 수수심나 만나와 수수가 강에 맞대봐 강에들 동네 채도 가지고 그래서
So what's important to differentiate and to identify and to know is that the practices, this practice of patience and deriving opportunity and benefit from seemingly harmful and negative individuals and experiences is a means of personal practice to maintain calm and peace and happiness within our own minds and refrain and avoid acting out of anger and to apply antidotes to these negative afflictive emotions and afflictive emotions in our own minds. So this is a personal internal practice that when we encounter these difficult and adverse conditions, we are able to in our own minds maintain and practice a calm stability and a peace and happiness. This type of practice of patience isn't emphasizing that we accept anything that comes at us, just close our eyes and just blindly here, just take me. You know, it's we have to it's a practice of patience that incorporates intelligence and common sense. It's not just like this martyrdom of sacrificing myself because I guess this is how you practice patience. Here, hit me with a hammer, and you know, here, scorpion, just kill me. That's not the practice, and this is not the technique that's being shared or emphasized here. When it comes to dealing with external circumstances, external conditions, and individuals and conditions around us, yes, if someone is coming at us with a knife or a weapon or harmful intent, we should do our best to get out of that situation, either run away or whatnot, but just, create distance. We're not going to stand there and be like, okay, well, here, I guess it tells me to practice patience. I guess this is what the bodhisattvas do. So here, just kill me. That's not what we're trying to, that's not what's being emphasized here in the teachings. In terms of dealing with difficulty, you must do what's necessary in that moment to protect oneself and to preserve oneself. But this emphasis is meant to be put in, or to be used internally when, rather than in the situation, or in the situation where instead of becoming angry or overcome with fear or hatred, we look at it differerly. Yes, we get out of the way, but internally we're able to maintain ourselves a sense of peace and calm, and keep our anger and the resulting thought processes and reactions in check. And so that's where an awareness, a mindfulness, and an analysis and a distinction, intellectual distinction is required. Just relying on one's common sense and intelligence.
맞아 콜 콘도사가 말고 니머를 니제라는 코 디디 초마시와 탑시단 디디 바가야 다시 당그래 가서 콜 파동 콜 콘도사 콜 디치기 말와 디던 집어레스로 가서 이때지 콘도사는 미지 너버 제바 있는다 가래는 단 진여몽의 왕을 가서 너버 징에데 코라로 하면 것도 차대요 딩자는 니제 공부로 가서 니버지네 니지 공부로다 가서 미 단지만 삼당신에 제는 니버지 디노 주와 주와 쇼제 레바이나 also jiwada tika chi kaya tashi tangana ma to jiwada tsuki chi nyumada padungya samdang marwa tewo niji bo nyumare kaya mare samde su nebo ma jianga tsu kaho chi do di chi baji jiang stress ra pendo shawaina.
So if someone who was, for example, mentally unstable, let's say, were to come at us and attack us physically, we would do our best to shield ourselves or to protect ourselves. Our intention wouldn't be to obtain their weapon and then attack them with it. So the intention and the practicality of the intention of protecting ourselves, albeit and all the while not harming them, and then the practicality of distancing ourselves or protecting ourselves from the attack are things to keep in mind as a means of how to deal with this situation where someone just innately negative. It sounds like the scorpion in this fable, anyways, is just as mentioned here, very very bad natured, almost like he can't help it. That was shared at the end there. Well, I can't help it, to the point where it was even at the cost of its own life that it stung the frog. So someone that is uncontrollably or incontrollably negative, and under complete influence of their negative negative distorted thoughts, comes and attacks us. Even then, in our minds, look at this individual with compassion, using the understanding that they're under the influence of anger, they're under the influence of unstable thoughts. Using that as an opportunity to cultivate compassion and then practice patience. That's what is meant to be practiced internally. But let's say physically, if we should run or shield ourselves somehow, that would be how we would practically do it. If we were to find ourselves in a situation like that. So before I read a few comments and one or two other questions here online, is there anyone that has anything to share here with us in person? Yes.
Yeah, so I was just wondering a little further about this distinction between a sort of martyrdom or self-sacrifice for, maybe no reason versus using this practice skillfully, I guess so would it be, I guess, a good way to understand this teaching is this when approaching someone who is like in this circumstance of someone who's going to physically attack you because they're sort of beyond a certain point of realizing what maybe they're doing or something like that, and you taking that attack, nothing will be learned from it, nothing will be gained from it. um, I guess I'm trying to understand the distinction between um, or maybe like a point of severity, because a someone who's high in practice, like a lama who's very esteemed or something like that, they might do a very extreme practice like this, um, of being with people who have a very contagious disease or something, and they may actually contract it. I guess I'm trying to wonder what is the sort of level where this practice stops being useful or stops being where we should think about not going into a harmful situation.
Like the back.
Right. Yeah.
Like where that is or where that lies, kind of, is that?
Yeah, I guess from both a secular and then also Dharma's perspective, maybe.
Right. Dani, tanda shude sharba.
Nas.
아니, 이번 같았어. tanda 제신 좀 베스 잡으시스. 어디 섬디 선점을 어디 거기네. 맞아. 아니 하실 때 직동된 강사들 이미는 그때 뭐야 때 지 감발아 본 집집 류 집어 당투에.
네.
근데 유어버스.
네.
아니 근데 되거는 베이저나 유어이나 아니 네바. 베 나서 베 나딩에 뉴스 거에 있는 나서 되니면은 아니 가실 남아 되니면은 가시면 뭐네 틀을 도지 아니 주 거에 그 선부 주는 매버지 아니 즉 나 캠에딩에 수 거에 캠에딩 어디 유어버스야.
네.
아니 즉 등하서로 이나 즉 냐가 여러분
네.
어디 즉 선점도 어디 거이면 아니 즉 예. 단데 그 냠내셔 봐.
네.
어디 가니야 간디스 예. 예, 가스스 예. 저로 제고 지겨 봐. 어디 제시 나스 님 비ಚಾ브스.
나스 됐어. 대pe 에원. 되네. 그래서 가서 내려가 수수기 냥동 도발 바베기를 하지 해라. 때는 가서 내 통과시 뭐이나 민 나성근의 전시 라로바체가 로고요나 아니 가서 가도 가래 거야 있는다. 가서 수수기 수부 성조지여 봐. 성조디 참아 체세는 아니 그 네버들 바체가 로고에 제거라. 그래서 수수 당연히 도바냐네 마모 체세는 뭐 지금 왜야 매거든. 다 지금 살랑도 도바 먹었어요. 배는 전환 들어가서 같은데 야 도사조지나네. 되는 거 그때 나 지금 가서 르라서 볼라 셈불게 와서 보면 좋아하다. 지다 나서도 전에 영화에 차려다. 내 바람도 저 도사가 있는데 내 등배 동에도 쓰면 아주 수수기 샤드스 봐. 상르네 제주죠. 저 버지 버지 나고 지송와 수수 샤드스 봐. 도스 바바 있네. 디체지 강에 매와 차려야죠. 딘민세 거 림바림바림바림바 바베 쿠랑 니당 쳐라. 디디서는 아주 수수기 디 니체 콜레메 수사하고 그러고 대체도 전 DJRS 팀마도에 아니 라마 첨부지 디체도 쓰는 거 소치해야 되는데 말했어. 맞아 젠로 로봇 해야 돼. 지게시들 제는 거는 젠지로 로봇 해야 건 로고에 차샤와이나. 아니 수수보다 많은 거 같아. 그래서 뭐 손쪽 체신 지금 해야 되는데 참 말했을 때 니체 디림바디 수수니 뉴설 바비다 바비디 채워서 디마초와도 채워이나. En kilo jamma chungi chuma to kema to ngi chi ja ki de wa ni te kanya ra wa te so te ne ba le ba te sun res.
So how to identify or designate where that is, or where the boundary is, is dependent on knowing one's own capacity, identifying and being mindful and aware of one's own capacity. If one knows for sure that, even though there are the individuals with a certain capacities that could go very close to an individual with a contagious illness, or that wouldn't, or that have the capacity to bear, let's say, a physical attack, that I myself am probably not at that level yet. So it takes a self-awareness, if you will, an acknowledgement, an understanding of where one is in one's practice. As that practice develops, as it grows, as it improves, different one ascends different levels of realizations, as they're called. So these lamas that you mentioned, or these very unique individuals that present these capacities, various capacities in different ways. They've gone to a certain level where they're able to withstand something that would bring us great suffering and pain if we were to come in contact with them. As you progress, you kind of as one develops this practice, the realizations and the ability and the capacity grows, and one may go through the ability to be close to those with contagious severe illnesses, to being able to even eventually, if need be, sever one's body parts if it does bring benefit to others. But these are all levels of practice that one slowly strives for and slowly attains through sincere and dedicated practice. But what's important is knowing where one is in that, and examining one's own mind, one's own feelings, and one's own practice, and knowing one's own capacity by looking inwards and asking oneself the questions of, where am I? Am I really ready? And more often than not, we can be honest with ourselves. We'll know where we are. Yes. Couple questions here. Thank you. A couple comments. Buddhism stresses the importance of integrating compassion and wisdom to address issues such as the fabled story raised. So it's not just blind compassion. It's wisdom. So going back to the common sense and intelligence, that's what we were emphasizing. Keep genuine. Keep genuine compassion for such fellow humans, but keep them at a safe distance. That's the wisdom practice. So in our minds, we maintain that same compassion, but externally, if we physically should keep a distance, then we will. Okay. For most of us, we practice this mind training to train our mind, but don't do anything radical because it will be futile. Realized practitioners, using their wisdom and compassion, can decide to undertake an action that's most beneficial to the other, including taking on others' suffering. Yes. So having that capacity of realization, you'd be able to withstand certain hardships that are experienced through interactions with others. But as beginners, it's important to, again, know one's capacity and not to jump into anything that's beyond that. I guess Jampa brought up the example of, let's say, only having the capacity to lift 10 pounds and trying to lift 100. You would hurt yourself. So likewise, in practice, it's the same thing. One last question, just a couple minutes past 9 here. The fable is also referring to an emotional stinger. The frog was convinced there was no danger through manipulation. So what is meant by applying common sense? 아니, isso gosto. 아니, 소소 남주 비슷한 걸 새끼 share was.
네.
근데 거기 미디 추고 오다면 이나 소소 고고 테드 베카다이나. 남주 관심 비슷한 걸 쓰는 매소 고고 테드 왔어.
네.
남주 비슷 남주를 비슷 왔어. 고고 테드 베카는 남주 좀 매매로 왔어. 아하. 남주 비슷 관심 걸 쓰는 거 고고 테드 베카고요.
같은 거 못해 살아. 못해 되거이나 타고 단도 텐지로 디 로지라는 지만데 지만 그거도 스마트해 제로 한 단한 그거 태워들 저버곤 소소 심바 마지고 마지바체 는 다 차차버려 차차와들 그 계시 콘로사지 되면 소소깔리로 하다와 그거는 대차 제스다 난 그거 태워들라 콘로사와도 이렇게 마지바체 몸반 되는 그거 마태라 담난세야로 나죠 비지 리파.
Yes. It's just the explanation was very practical, and so it just caused me to. It was kind of a pleasant chuckle that came from me there. And the practical application of common sense here would be that if one was already manipulated, then okay, it's already taken place. Let's not beat myself up about that. And to learn a lesson for next time. Be cautious next time. Learn, again, going back to learning something from the experience or deriving benefit from the experience. Take that as a lesson. And we'll be sure to be more on our toes next time. And then in terms of being manipulated or the act of manipulating us and us being manipulated itself, well, it's already taken place. And there's nothing I can do to change that. So don't make it worse by beating myself up and saying, oh, you're so stupid. Like, why would you even do that? Like, I can't believe this happened to me, and dwelling in this kind of self-loathing. Take it as a lesson and move forward with that. That'd be the most practical way and best way of applying common sense.
먼저 차차위를 하들라 가드이나 가서 운동을 제마줘야 돼 개체물에서 차레스. 상반에 개체슈들아 대차차가 들체하게 말때 요슈상 차야돼 맞아 길리지 차야기 다만 개체슈지 차고요.
So not adding layers to a not prolonging the suffering that we experience through something that's already taken place is one of the keys to maintaining our happiness and peace and calm. When we grasp and we dwell on something that's already taken place, that's already gone, no longer exists, technically, quite actually, truly, rather than in our minds. If it's still affecting us, and that's what causes us pain, and this pain can reside in us for a very long time. But if we are able to see the past for the past and cut that off there, learn something from it, and move forward and not grasp and dwell on it, this is a great way of maintaining ourselves and not adding a layer of suffering. Imagine us experiencing something negative. We're already reeling from that suffering, and then we have this habit to add extra layers to that. And then self-deprecate, self-loathe, and then dwell in self, guilt, so on. So it just adds layers to the suffering. So we couldn't control what happened to us, for the most part. But what we can control is adding these layers of suffering. I mean, it already hurts. Why am I going to make why should I make it hurt more? As practical as it sounds, obviously application is something that we all need to work on, but as a concept, letting the past be the past and then moving forward is the best way to apply intelligence and common sense to maintain peace and calm.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll stop there for tonight. Thank you for your attendance and participation. We rejoice with us all having the opportunity to sit here together and read and examine very fundamental and precious topics. We'll now dedicate our positive imprints in karma through reciting the dedication at the very beginning of the text. Right after the copyright page there, you'll see the dedication. So please recite along with us. To His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, and all the holy masters of the Buddha Dharma, may they have long and healthy lives. To the teachings of the Buddha, may they endure for a very long time. To the members of the Sangha community, may they abide in pure morality, be free of any schism, and succeed in their studies and contemplations. To all beings, may they be free from suffering, and may they attain great enlightenment. To all the nations of the world, may they be free from illness, famine, war, and conflicts. May lasting peace prevail and endure forever. Thank you, and I hope to see you next week.
Thank you, replied. See you next time.